cybersecurity domain? What are the future impacts it's going to have on it?
I think it has accelerated the need for it a lot more, just like it has for other technologies, right? Everybody went remote like suddenly one day, right? And like a lot of movement, a lot of businesses, a lot of things moved online within few days, right? E-commerce industry took a, I don't know, 10 years worth of growth in few months, right? So like 10 years worth of projected growth they did in 3 months. So a lot of industries had like sudden explosive growth. Most of them were not ready for it, and I'm pretty sure every industry has faced security issues, right? If you just look at Zoom, right? Zoom went I don't know, had a like 6x growth like within a few months, right? But like the first thing that they faced was they are not secure enough to be dealing with like millions of people every day, right? Their encryption is not up to the scratch. So they ended up hiring like 200 people to just patch up security as soon as they could. So I think everything that has gone through explosive growth and is still going through explosive growth, security is always a major concern for them, because with scale always comes challenges of security, like different challenges, technical challenges, just thinking about it, challenges, because now it's a much larger surface area, right? The more people you have, the more your threat surface area is, and the more you have to think about how to secure things better, because the more more people there are, the more lucrative it is for the malicious actors.
Yeah, the pandemic situation has or just boosted the technology ahead, like
Hmm.
take us to the future. Like
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. So also this thing these days, DevSecOps is coming into picture a lot. Like everyone's talking about is, and I personally think it's going to boom in the future. What are
Yeah.
your intakes on that?
I agree. DevSecOps. I think to understand DevSecOps, you should understand DevOps. What DevOps, at least for me, my understanding is that what DevOps is doing is building the pipelines, building the supply chain of pretty much all the technologies that are in the forefront on the internet, right? Everything that's front facing, automating and scaling and all of that is what DevOps is. Now, securing the supply chain, that's extremely important, and and I think this is a very current topic, just by talking about like the Kaseya situation, the 10,000 ransomwares that are attacking all the different supply chains, the oil and natural gas supply chains, the electrical grid supply chains. Like the supply chain attacks are becoming like much more relevant nowadays, just because people haven't thought about it. And for me, DevOps is the supply chain. DevOps is what we use to build that supply chain. So securing DevOps, so DevSecOps, is for me securing the supply chain. And I think for all technologies, as we have understood in the past, that secure by default, right? Everything should be secure by default. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Just continuously patching things doesn't work. It's a very uphill battle. It's always going to be much more painful, rather than if you just think about security from the beginning and have things secure by default. So I think DevSecOps is that mindset that, okay, DevOps, the supply chain of the entire technology stack of the internet, should be secure by default. And I think that's a very important thing for people to understand and learn and implement across the internet, really.
Yeah. So combining DevOps and with security onto a similar page, it really helps this organization to achieve safer products and easier build better products, right? Like from there's a chain of this deployment. There's a change of this deployment, development, everything, deployment, maintaining all this. If we integrate security in that, that makes all this thing like much more safer, and the outcome becomes much more better.
Of
Yeah,
course, of course. I think anything with security is much better. The distinction
yeah,
I will make here is that security is not a technology. I think I'll just quote you that in this
yeah,
scenario, security is not just integrating a secure technology. It's having that thought process to make this supply chain secure from the beginning, from the default. So having that, putting that thought into it, that is this secure, I think that is what is necessary, and that is what integrating security means to me. Not necessarily that, okay, we will use a secure DevOps technology. That is, I think, the probably the wrong way to go about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. Moving on, let's talk about a little bit the AI over here. So
Yeah.
AI is improving a lot, and what do you think AI can help in the cybersecurity domain?
I think I'll give you both of my perspectives. So one, again, it's the like what is AI used for? For example, what we use AI for is to identify patterns in big data and help personalize the care for patients using that, right? So and just taking that the understanding of what AI can do for you, right? AI can crunch huge amount of data, huge amounts of like noisy data, find patterns, find anomalies, right? If you take that understanding of what AI does and can do for you, that is very useful in a security perspective, because finding anomalies is kind of the job, right? If you're thinking about like defensive security of a blue team, of a SOC analyst who is just analyzing logs, like millions of lines of logs every day, their job is to find anomalies, right? Their job is to find anomalous behavior from users, from systems, from anything. That why did this person download this, why did this software make a call to an IP in Russia, right? Finding that anomaly, that's the job, right? That's the job of a blue team person. Now AI can help you do that, right? Like crunching huge amount of data and finding anomalies, that's basically one of the pros that AI can help you. So from a defensive standpoint, it's extremely helpful. Now, if you take that to the offensive point of view, again, it's also very important, because now AI can do things that people can't do, right? The amount of crunching data, the amount of finding gaps, the resolution at which an AI system could find gaps is, again, like it's mind-boggling, because a lot of the systems that are developed today and are secure against people, right? They are not secure against AI. They are not secure against a bot trying to find flaws in the system, right? So there are sort of both angles to it. Yes, it can be extremely helpful, and I think it is already extremely helpful in the defensive part, right? It's already being used to analyze logs, to find patterns, to find gaps in the system. Offensive part of it, that's also up and coming. So pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, AI is definitely used in this detecting anomalies. Like the log files are really huge. Like it goes to many gigabytes, petabytes. So
Yeah.
detecting anomalies over there by the help of artificial intelligence really helps a lot. And I'd say if we can do something like on over the intelligence side with this artificial intelligence, that would be, I think, really good. And I am actually eager to see if that could be actually done. Let
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know of people that are already doing it. That there are companies that are already using AI to boost their defensive security capabilities.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure there are people who are doing it for offensive capabilities as well, but they are not advertising that as of now. So we'll find out.
sure.
Yeah.
So shifting a little towards the red teaming side, towards the pen testing side.
Yeah.
So these days, bug bounty is getting a lot of picture. In India, there are like many people are doing bug bounties. Like if you go to Twitter, go to LinkedIn, you'll find a lot of posts like, yeah, I got this much bounty, I got this much.
Yeah.
So what do you think will be the future of a bug bounty? Can this be a full-time profession?
Yeah. I might have an unpopular opinion here, but I'll try to explain my perspective. So, bug bounty, like what is a bug bounty program? A bug bounty program is a way for a company to test their system with a massive amount of workforce. So with a massive amount of manpower, massive amount of just thought going into it, right? Just investing a lot of thought capital that otherwise wouldn't have been possible, either logistically or financially, or for some reason wouldn't have been possible for them to hire. Hiring a million testers to test a product doesn't really work, right? It's not logistically possible. Um, on the other hand, um, I feel like there is always going to be an inflection point where the risk is too high, right? There are a lot of companies, and if you think about like the sensitive industry, like financial industry, right? Uh, anybody who's dealing with data, anybody who's dealing with the infrastructure of the just world, physical infrastructure. So for industries like that, just exposing their systems to external scrutiny, that can be a much higher risk than not knowing what their what their issues are, not knowing what their problems are. So it's always a risk benefit analysis for pretty much every company to choose whether that risk of exposure is sufficient, or is has enough benefit from a bug bounty. My hypothesis is that that inflection point, every company, even if they might be okay with doing a bug bounty today, right, and finding issues, there is always going to be an inflection point where the risk becomes too high, right, and they will choose that. That's a constant risk benefit analysis that happens for every company, everybody who's who has their own bug bounty program. So my hypothesis is that it'll saturate at some point. Once you have found, let's say, 99% of the issues, that 1% of finding that 1% of the issues is going to be too expensive compared to the risk of actually exposing your system. So again, depends on the company, depends on the industry, depends on the product. I'm pretty sure it will be there for the next, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years. Doesn't really change that much. But I feel that just from a risk benefit analysis, that's something that's constantly ongoing in every business's mind. And if it's possible for them not to do it, they wouldn't do it, right? And that's an outlook that comes from dealing with sensitive data, sensitive assets. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked your perspective over that. That's a different perspective I had for this thing. Like a really nice thing. So definitely, insider threat can be a huge. It's the biggest problem, I think.
Yeah.
Social engineering and the insider threats are the biggest problem to the cybersecurity. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
So,
People
yeah,
are your largest threat vector. People are your largest threat surface area.
yeah.
People are the most vulnerable, and people are the ones you need to defend yourself from. So yeah.
Yeah, so also, like, if you are running a bug bounty program, like, you are exposing all those resources to a bunch of people out there, and
Yeah.
it might also be the case, like, the vulnerabilities they found, it might be like 1%, 2%, as you said, that might not be that much helpful.
Yeah.
So considering the risk, yeah,
Exactly.
I
I might be coming at it from a business perspective, just because, like, that's a question. Like, do you want to run a bug bounty program for your product? And I feel the answer to that question is no, except for a very select scenarios. And that's kind of the way I see it. Yeah.
see, considering the situation of a startup, they don't have an actual, like, workforce for to actually pen test their product or continuously monitor their activities logs and all these things.
Yeah.
So they kind of move towards the bug bounty side of things. So what do you think?
Um, Again, I think it depends on the industry. I think it depends on what the product is, right? If it's a public facing product, right? So one of the variables that you need to think about, right, is my product going to be public, right? Is the product that I'm selling today, is it going to be available to the public at any point? If it is, then it is going to be exposed either way, right? If it's a public facing, if it's a consumer facing product, then it is going to be public and the threat surface area is going to be exposed, so might as well test it, right? That's one way to look at it, and that kind of defines the for some B2C startups. On the other hand, if the product you're selling is not going to be for public, if it's basically an understanding of the threat surface area, right? If the threat surface area can be limited by the business scenario, by the way your product is going to be used, right? I'm not going to expose my product to the internet, right? So that threat surface area is so much smaller that might not be a good benefit to doing a bug bounty program. So I think that's one of the bigger variables to make that call. So yes, if it's a startup building an app, they should probably do it, and they almost all the time do it. um, but again, it depends.
Yeah, it depends on the what is your need, and is it really helping you out or not.
Yeah.
So nice. So shifting towards
Mm.
towards another tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all these, there are so many cryptographic algorithms, right? And there are some, many of them which have been cracked these till now, and some of them which are currently like considered secure.
Mm-hmm.
But considering that these days quantum computers are coming up, quantum computing is also growing a lot. What do you feel like? Do we need does these algorithms are that much secure, or do we need to find something else? Probably.
It's a very difficult question to answer just because there's a lot of uncertainty in quantum computing, right? There are too many unknowns, too many variables in play. Yes, there is a theoretical possibility that the cryptographic algorithms that we use today can be broken by a quantum computer. Will that be done in 5 years or 20 years? We don't know. It can, right? The theoretical, the mathematical possibility is there, right? So how do you deal with that, right? The way to deal with that, and I think that's what some of the companies are doing, they're trying to find post quantum computing algorithms. But then again, like, the internet does not run on those algorithms today, so that shift is going to be monumental, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight, and I don't think it's easy, right? So I think it's a probability that you need to tackle. That, okay, there's a probability that someday the algorithms that run the internet might get broken by quantum computing. So what would you do then? So having a business continuity plan for the internet, I think that's important. But otherwise, it's all up in the air. I think there's too many variables for us to know for sure what will happen. It might happen, so we should prepare for it, and we should leave it at that. I think that's my sort of outlook to that.
Yeah, cool. So you talked about this thing, right? So yeah, just a second. Yes. So you were talking about this quantum computing, right? So that's actually nice. We definitely are not unsure what's going to be there in the future, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are here among our audience are kind of beginners and really like somewhat confused, like where should they start from in this cybersecurity domain? What do you suggest to them?
Career advice. The only career advice that I can, like, honestly give you is, find what you're passionate about. Find what makes you excited, right? What gets you thinking about it, gets you excited, right? It can be security, it can be any domain of security, any depth of security, breadth of security, doesn't really matter. If you can get yourself, if you can motivate yourself, if you can inspire yourself, and bring that perseverance and persistence to just getting to know something, to understanding something, and to learning to think in ways that can that can help you in the future. I think that's the most important component of career success. Doesn't really matter which aspect of security it is. It can be red team, it can be vulnerability analysis, penetration testing, it can be, I don't know, it can be just like development, right? It can be coding, it can be business, it can be people, right? It can be, it's a people security is a thing, right? So it doesn't really matter the aspect of security that gets you, that gets you going. But I think it's extremely important to find that point. Like, what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that that makes you tick, right? What is that thing that doesn't let you sleep at night? What's that problem that you need to solve, right? That gets you up in the morning, right? So I think that's the only career advice I would give you. No specifics about technology, no specifics about, I don't know, industry, anything like that. I think the value in the industry for people who understand and think security comes from their expertise, comes from their passion, and comes from their understanding. And that only happens once dedicate a lot of time and effort and energy to learning and understanding and growing your skill set, your expertise. There will always be a demand for people who are experts in something. There will always be a demand for people who are passionate about something. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter which technology it is. Doesn't matter what that segment of expertise is. There'll always be a demand for it.
Sure, I also completely agree with you. Finding your passion and then following it is the thing. That is the key to your success.
Yeah.
And I also suggest everyone to to the beginners, right? They have a lot of time ahead in their life, so I suggest them to go on and explore all the fields of computer science, explore different things, and try to find what actually excites you, and keep following that.
Yeah.
And considering the case with cybersecurity, it's not like that. Okay, you have done web development. That's not gonna help you in the cybersecurity. Or, okay, you have done this thing. That's not gonna help in the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is kind of thing. If you know anything regarding this computer science, that's definitely gonna help you in this domain and land a job. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's actually.
I completely agree. And I think it's also not about like computer science. If you have the fundamentals, right? If you have the fundamentals clear, computer, it could be computer science, could be, business, could be, money, could be finances. You can have, if you have the fundamentals clear, right? And if you have that, okay, I want to secure money, right? That could be a way for you to get into it. Right? I'm pretty sure there's always a demand for people who want to secure money, but yeah, I think that's the way to look at it, that okay, if security is your passion, right? And it can be anything around like securing anything, right? It's always an amalgamation of multiple things, right? It's not, security in itself is not one, let's say, one domain, right? It's an amalgamation of another domain, another area where there is value, and trying to protect it. So I think that's the way to look at it. Anything you're passionate about, right? And you can bake security into that.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Also, the newcomers are also a little confused over there. People feel like a certification is required to get into the cybersecurity domain, and when it comes to these certain kind of certifications, they are actually quite expensive. Considering the case of India, how
Yeah.
people are there. Okay, so
No, no,
so what do you think? Is it the case, or it is just a myth?
um does it help? Yes. Does it make or break your career? No. I'll try to explain. I did my CEH, right? I think this was 2013, maybe like 8 years back. So when I did my CEH, right, I knew, I knew something, right? I knew some things, and I understood, right? There were concepts there that I learned in, like, while I was doing my CEH, that I used to this day, right? CIA triad, like confidentiality, integrity, availability, just like frameworks to understand security, frameworks to think about security. What are the, let's say, steps, right? You will learn concepts when you are doing this, doing these kind of certifications, because they have a lot of content, they have a lot of material, and they are comprehensive, right? If you look at CISSP is a certification that lets you understand all the domains of security, right? It has like 11 or 13 domains of security that, that it, tries to make you understand. The point is, it doesn't make or break, right? There is nothing in there that you cannot learn elsewhere. So I would think of certifications as a tool for learning. Do they help? Sure. Do they make or break your career? Not really. I'll tell you why. Because people look at certifications, right? People do look for certification, because it does tell you a little bit about the person, that okay, this person has, one, he has the dedication to actually understand and, pass this certification, so that it gives you some insight into that. It tells you that they are interested, right? They have perseverance, which is extremely important, right? That they have the tenacity to be able to do that. So that it tells you that. What it doesn't tell you is what this person knows, right? You cannot tell from a certification what this person got out of that certification. And everybody gets different things out of that certification. Everybody learns different things, because every person's brain works differently, right? Every person is unique. Their brain works differently. So people get different things. I think they are a very useful tool. So if you are interested about learning about something, right? If you are interested in learning about all the domains of security, CISSP is a very useful tool. Do you need to get that certification? You don't. Should you use that as a learning tool? You definitely should. So I think that's the way to look at it. These are all, um, learning tools, right? These are all like collected bodies of knowledge, which you can use to learn and grow and expand your understanding. So from that point of view, these are very useful, just because they're structured in that way, right? If you think about red teaming, right, penetration testing, vulnerability analysis, OSCP, right? OSCP is one of the most hands-on certifications, right? It gives you very rigorous expertise in actually like Linux penetration testing, and just like complete network awareness and how to do it, right? It gives you hands-on labs and training and a lot of things, right? Is that experience useful? Yes, it's very useful in learning if you haven't been in an industry setting where you're actually doing that. But can you get that elsewhere? Yes, you can of course get that when you are when you are working somewhere that you are you're a SOC analyst, or you're a security analyst, or a penetration tester at a company. You can probably get that in the first 6 months of working at a startup. So it kind of works like that. As a learning tool, as a store of knowledge, the certifications are extremely useful. Will they make or break your career? Not really. So they may help. They may help. They may get you in the door. They may get you an interview, right? But they don't decide whether you succeed. That's how it works.
Yeah, I also think in the similar line only. Like, yeah, certification do help you. Do tell them, yeah, this person is interested in this domain. Yeah, and there's a kind of like, yeah, okay, this guy knows this much thing. Like that can be predefined also. But considering certification as the like you will get the job and that's the only thing you need, I don't think that's the case. That's actually never the case.
Yeah.
So the certification may help you in the like screening resume screening process, but at the end, what I feel is the skills that gets a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
also a lot of the other skills. It's also soft skills, right? It's also about how you
yeah,
communicate what you got from that. Maybe you learned a lot from that certification, right? And but if you're able to communicate that, okay, I have learned a lot from this certification, then it's valuable. But that's a personal thing. That's on you.
yeah. Actually, that's a nice point you brought out. Like soft skills are like really required in this domain. Like you'll be reporting to many like clients and all these things. You will be auditing all those systems and generating reports for those systems, right? You need the soft skills definitely over there.
Yeah.
Also, like suppose you find a vulnerability on a system, like you need a good kind of report to be like to send out to that person to that will triage that. So soft skills are definitely required in that domain.
Yes, to communicate the importance, the significance of what you have found. That's
Yeah,
extremely important. One, you should
sure.
understand the significance of it, and then you should be able to communicate. Otherwise, then you end up getting ignored. So that shouldn't happen.
Nice.
Mm.
So moving on, let's take out a question. Uh, let's consider a scenario. We have a small startup and that deals with the data security, sensitive data. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that from cybersecurity perspective, that would make or break that company? That start.
um, a few things. In my opinion, one of the first and foremost is image, right? Perception, because that's one of the things that generally um, hurts the most about security, right? If people have trusted you with information that is sensitive information, and you you are breached, let's say you suffer a breach or something happens, right? That can make or break the company, right? Because that builds an image that it's not secure, and if that trust gets broken, you're done. The other thing that I think can make or break is if people in the company don't understand security. They don't have a culture of security, um, because security, again, like I mentioned, it's not one thing, right? It's everybody's job. It's not one person's job. It's not one team's job. It's everybody's job to keep the whole thing secure, keep the system secure, keep the company secure. So if everybody does not have a security conscious culture, that can generally make or break things, because that builds I don't know, that builds not if a culture of a company is not security conscious, right, that incrementally increases your threat exposure area, and at some point it becomes impossible to defend, and then it only becomes a question of time when something is going to break, when something is, somebody is going to try to attack, and they're going to find so many holes. So try to do that, it's always about having consciousness everywhere. Every person who's working in the company should be conscious about security.
Yeah, right. You mentioned this point, trust. Like trust in this, yeah, is definitely the most important point. Like, suppose like some attack happened, or like some service went down for a couple of hours, that actually has a much effort, much impact on the trust of that company, and to the user base also. Like a user base, users will also say, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, trust breaks," right? That's the
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Also, you mentioned like the security is not one person's job or one team's job, it's the whole company, a whole organization's job.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like a single loophole in the organization can break the whole system, right? That's what there's a phrase like blue teamers have to be correct every time, and red teamers have to be just correct one time to break the whole system.
Yes, yes. I completely agree. And the way to think about it, right? It's the red team and blue team, right? The people who are on the red team and the blue team, right? The skill set isn't really different, right? The skill set is pretty much the same. It's trying to find flaws. The person who can find flaws can also patch it, right? So I think it should always be a healthy combination of that. Okay, I'm doing red teaming, and then I'm doing blue teaming. I'm finding all the problems and then patching them, right? It's always a balance between the two that helps you, right? It's never that like you said, a blue team, a blue person who is defensive security, they have to be right all the time, and the only way to be right all the time is to be actually looking for flaws all the time. So it's always a combination of the two.
Right, right. So moving on to the next question. Is it expensive to hire a full team for securing a company? So companies release bug bounties, right? So
Yes.
what do you think students and cybersecurity enthusiasts should participate in bug bounties? Like why do companies release them?
um I think we were talking about this a bit earlier about like why they do it, right? It's because that it's a risk benefit analysis. The risk to allowing people to look for bugs, look for loopholes, look for security is less, right? In a controlled environment, it's much less. So if your assumption is that somebody is going to find a problem someday, so I want to have a controlled explosion today to make sure that there is not a real explosion some other day, right? If you look at it that way, bug bounties make sense. So if there is a bug bounty there to be hunted, uh, go for it, right? It will always give you more understanding, more exposure, more skills to to learn about, like where the flaws are, where the problems are, where a system can break. So it's a great learning tool for sure. So I would say go for it. If that's something that interests you, go for it. Try to find issues. From a business perspective, I don't think it's not everybody's tool, right? Every industry, every scenario, it's not going to get solved by bug bounty. It's a tool to enable testing at a massive scale, and it works for some scenarios. So yeah, I think that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, so that's right. So moving to the next question, like cybersecurity is a huge domain, and people want to get into cybersecurity, but there's a huge gap between the people who are working with cybersecurity and who want to be get into the cybersecurity. Like this gap is really huge. What do you think? How can we fill in that gap? What should be done to fill that gap?
There is a huge workforce gap. There is a huge workforce gap in the availability for people who fit that gap. And I think the gap is not really because of skills, or it's not because of people with the education or certifications or skills. I think it's because people don't have that mindset, right? if security is what you're interested in. So when companies are looking for people to hire on a security domain, they are looking for people with a very specific expertise, and that generally doesn't work, right? And when the only scenario where that works is if you have a deep expertise in one specific area of this, and that fits, right? That fits the need of the industry. So the way I see to fill that gap is, again, like I was talking, it's about passion, it's about understanding, it's about learning about something to the depth necessary for you to understand how to secure it or how to break it, right? Understanding something to the extent that you know how to break it, what are all the places something can break. Understanding that requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of understanding, a lot of learning to be done. So if you have that, that is when you kind of become fit for what the industry needs in terms of security. So I think that's the gap that exists in the market today, and I think people try to fill it in a lot of different ways. um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I think the way to go about it is to find your niche, find your passion, find that thing that that you want to be the expert in, and cultivate it. And again, this is not coming from that you need 10 years experience to be an expert in something. It can be a very small field, like you were mentioning DevSecOps, right? A DevSecOps expert, right? A person who has done DevSecOps or understand DevSecOps or has learned DevSecOps for 6 months is, there is a huge gap in the market for that. So specialization and understanding what is that you are passionate about, and what is that gets you going. That's important. Once you find that, I think you'll find the gap in the industry for yourself.
Sure, sure. That's it. That's a nice thing. Let's take some questions from the chat. The people are chatting, sending questions in the YouTube chat. Let's take
Sure.
out from them. So first one is from Spurge Kesri, like cybersecurity perspective on open source. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a nice question. There are so many open source tools over there. Like, what do you think? Uh, open source has impact on its cybersecurity?
Um, I think I think most of the internet is built on open source, so I think
Yeah.
the impact is very high. I think the way to think about it, right? Because it's open, right? Because it's open to the public, because it's always being scrutinized, and because people are always trying to find holes in it. I think most of the open source technologies are secure by default. If they are not, they are going to be, just because of the amount of scrutiny and thought that goes into it, that collective mentality, right? If there are 50 people working on something together, right, there is a collaborative approach, there is people thinking about different angles of it, and it generally tends to find that, okay, this is a security issue, right? Because somebody thinks that, right? Somebody thinks of that always. So in open source technologies, there is always that chance, that there's a much higher chance, much higher probability that it is secure than it is not, just because of the number of eyes on it, right? And also the impact, right? If somebody is using, I don't know, Python for writing something, right, the need for Python to be secure is much higher, because like a lot of the internet is built on it, right? So I think that's the way to look at it. Open source is is so instrumental to the functioning of the world today, that it has to be secure, and it is extremely important for it to be secure. And most of the time it is secure. Most of the time that's where people find flaws, but again, finding flaws and patching, it's always much faster in open source.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, they do have a good impact over cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So coming to the next question from the chat, is investing time on bug bounties and getting duplicates worth the time? Yeah, I think this question is being asked a lot. Like, people
Anything is
do.
worth the time if you like it, if it is interesting for you, if it is something that you like doing, if that if finding that XSS flaw in that piece of code is what gives you that rush of achievement, yes, it's worth it. as a as a career choice, up to you. If it is just something you do for, do for a living, if it is not interesting, right, I wouldn't recommend it. It's it can be tedious. You can do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, right? There are blueprints to, finding flaws. That okay, these are the 10,000 flaws. Check this app for these 10,000 flaws. These are the way to check these 10,000 flaws in an application that uses, I don't know, Java and React and something, right? So there are blueprints to this. The blueprint approach doesn't help, right? If you think about it, if you start thinking about that, okay, this is where something can go wrong, and if you get that understanding of a technology, of an application, of a vulnerability, that okay, this is the vulnerability that, that this is the concept, this is the reason that this vulnerability exists, and then try to extrapolate and find vulnerabilities, that is extremely useful. It gets you in that mindset. It gets you in that mindset of thinking about where things will break. So I think that's extremely useful. Yeah, that's, I guess, my thought.
Yeah, definitely. If you are doing this from the part-time kind of thing, like for the fun kind of things to hack into some websites or some companies, that's it's definitely worth it for the exciting part of it. But if you are doing for a full-time kind of thing, then I think one should change his methodology to and the like reconnaissance part of things and do active reconnaissance like little more seriously to find uh, much better vulnerabilities, right? Like often these times, these low hanging fruits are marked as duplicates. So
Yeah.
yeah, it totally
I think
depends
I
on
think
the
that's
view.
I think that's an important point, right? It's about getting you in that mindset. That, okay,
Yeah,
are you thinking about security, or are you thinking about, just checking a list, right? Checking boxes doesn't help you as a person. Yes, it might get you a few bounties, it might get you something, but it doesn't help your growth, right? That's my sort of perspective, that if there's a checklist that you're going down, you're not thinking, you're not learning from that. And learning is, I think, what's most important in this.
yeah. Also, I think doing just pasting exercises payloads here and there over everywhere. Just that's not the best part of security. Is like security is meant to be like as a learning thing. Like you need to keep learning, keep continuously growing in this field to like reach new heights in it. So I
Yes.
think that is what is much more important.
Yes, agree.
So moving to next question. Is it possible to get cybersecurity job without having any kind of certification like CH or OSCP?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think we did briefly discussed
Doesn't
about it previously.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
it,
I mean,
it's not
it's
necessary.
completely
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah. It's completely possible to get into cybersecurity without any certification. Like just these
Yes.
certifications are like will take as Deep sir said. They will take you to the door, but you have to cross that door, open it, and
Yes,
just
they
cross
will
that door.
open. They might open some doors for you. So here's the way I see, when you have to make a choice, right? You have to make a choice of whether or not to do a certification, right? I think, try to first understand what that certification is for. Nowadays there are certifications for everything, right? There are certifications for first responders, there are certifications for people who are, incident response people. There are certifications, again, like CISSP, CEH, OSCP. There are the more famous ones, and then there are the not so famous ones, which are, for very specialized niches. I think when you're thinking about this as a career choice, whether or not to get a certification, right, first understand your passion, first understand the niche that gets you, interested, then learn about it. If there is a certification in that niche that helps you learn, right, then not even getting that certification, just understanding the content, right, understanding the educational material for that certification is sufficient. The certification, exactly like you said, the certification might get you an interview, but it won't help until you actually learn the content, learn and understand and build your own skill set of that content, right? If it is just, Linux certification, right? And this applies to pretty much everywhere else in the tech industry, right? You don't need to be a, I don't know, something certified, something, to do something, right? To know something, that sometimes establishes that you have some things, right? Knowledge, tenacity, perseverance, just effort. It establishes that you have some of those things, but it does not, it's not a checkbox that, okay, just because this person has a CISSP, he's good at security, doesn't mean that ever, right? So that's the way to look at it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Doing certification just to get just for the sake of getting certified is not worth it at all. I would recommend go explore the domain, learn yourself, and do mistakes. Try to overcome them, and if there's a point you feel like doing a certification might help you or is required for you, definitely go for them. It's completely fine.
Yeah.
So moving to the next question. A part of cybersecurity is to find loopholes, find what makes something tick and manipulate it to serve your purpose.
Yeah.
I think let's get to the next question. Yeah, that was yeah.
No, no,
How to stay up?
like
Yeah,
straight.
how to stay up to date and with new bug bounties and these texting and bugs and all these updates. How to stay updated in it.
How to stay updated with the latest technological advances from a security perspective. um, I think nowadays there is a lot of material online. There are emergency responder teams across the world, at a country level, at an industry level. There are lots of places where you just are bombarded constantly with vulnerabilities that just keep coming in. So I don't think it's about where to find that information. I think it's about choosing what that information is that you want, right? Because it's always defined by your threat surface area. It's defined by that, okay, I'm working in this industry, this technology, this is the stuff that I understand. Learning about the security implications of that, learning about keeping up to date in that. So I think it's very important to niche, right? It's very important to find your niche and then try to keep yourself up to date. Just consuming all the knowledge that's just being generated every day in the world won't work. It'll just you'll hurt yourself.
Yeah, I think Twitter is a nice place to stay updated. I think most of the vulnerabilities and all these kind of things are first posted on Twitter, and then
Sure.
it revolves around all these blogs and all. There are a couple of bloggers out there which write write they were good blogs for beginners, and
Hmm.
just find out those blogs and whose language sounds better to you, and just stay
Yes.
updated.
Yeah.
So moving to the next question, what is the relationship between security and privacy?
Oh. That's a big one. um I think personally, right? Personally, and this is a very personal question, pretty much for everybody. Privacy has a moral or an ethical component to it, right? Privacy comes from what do people deserve, right? People sort of, and it's a spectrum, right? How much do people want privacy, right? People are willing to sacrifice their privacy for some conveniences, right? Just by looking at all the controversies in the past few years, right? There is privacy on one end, there is convenience or accessibility on the other end, right? So that's always a choice, right? um, I think security is about enforcing privacy or enforcing adequate privacy. So that's kind of the relation between the two as I see it. But again, the if you think about it, right? What privacy dictates, right? If you look at just like from a regulation point of view, privacy laws, right? Regulations dictate, what are the measures to be taken to keep your data private or keep information private, right? What are the moral obligations, what are the ethical obligations for data privacy? Security is how you enforce that, right? Security principles, security policy, security enforcement is how you enforce the requirements, the moral requirements, the ethical requirements of data privacy in a real world setting. So that's the relation between them, if that makes sense.
There's one more question. Is coding required for getting into cybersecurity?
Coding.
Yeah.
you know, like I think this is where kind of we started the conversation. It doesn't have to be computer science at all. You can come from a finance background, you can come from a business background, you can come from a risk and governance background, and and security can be useful for you. And you can get into security, just because security is about protecting assets, right? And assets are not just technical or computer assets. Assets can be anywhere in the world and in any way. So it's definitely not a requirement to know coding to be to get into
Yeah,
security. Do you need to
completely
understand
agree with that.
something, right? Do you need to
Please
understand?
continue.
No, I'm saying you need to understand something, right? That what is it that you're securing? If for that you don't need coding, if it's not application security, you probably don't need coding. If it's not tech security, you probably don't need that.
Yeah, actually, what's the case with beginners is they are confused. Like they think coding is required to get into cybersecurity, but it's never the case. It has never been the case. Like you need coding or something like that to get into cybersecurity. It's not like that. There are so many examples to get into cybersecurity who are not from any IT background, non IT, non CS people get into cybersecurity. There are tons of examples out there.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah,
those are the people who I feel are the people who have like 10, 12, 20 years of experience working in another industry, right? Somebody who understands that industry to a very high level of detail. Those people, they can get into security without any education, any learning. There is a very high learning curve to understanding security. There is a very high learning curve to understanding anything to the level that you can get into security. But that doesn't have to be technology, that doesn't have to be coding, that doesn't have to be computer science.
yeah, that's a really nice point you bring out. I'll get back to that point, but first of all, it's 6 p.m. and it's time to kickstart the CTF. And
Yeah.
just a second, let me share my screen. Just a second. Yeah. So the Capture the Flag event is live now, and you can find the challenges at ctf.pointblank.club. You just need to go to ctf.pointblank.club and register yourself, and you'll see the challenges. So I request everyone here in the participants to go there and start solving these challenges and find some flags.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Very
towards the
exciting.
prize.
Go for it. Yeah. Good luck to everybody.
And the prizes, we have a 1,000 rupee cash prize for the winner, and a lifetime subscription for the winner of Taskade, and 1 year free subscription for the winner, and the second prize from Egghead. And for others also, we have Repellent plan 1 month, hacker plan of Repellent, swags, and participation certificate for everyone who participates in this Capture the Flag.
Awesome.
Just a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think these days? We talked about blockchain, right? So, what do you think blockchain has impact on this cybersecurity? What do you think?
So blockchain is a very a personal passion of mine, right? I think it's very complex, and a lot of the times people try to fit a square peg in a security shaped hole. So and it doesn't work, right? So the way to think about it, right? The way to think about it is what does a blockchain do? A blockchain gives you a decentralized, chain of trust, right? A decentralized way to store money or information or transactions or anything really that you can trust. And you can trust not by people or not by institutions, that you can trust by using math, right? So that's the manifesto of a blockchain, right? What does it help you do? So if you think about that, there are scenarios there are security related scenarios, there are privacy related scenarios, there are different scenarios where you do need it, right? You do need a decentralized chain of trust, depending on what that scenario is. And there are scenarios where it makes a lot of sense, right? To enable like financial transactions, to enable uh, storage of privacy, to build trust between multiple entities, to build trust between in a transaction involving multiple entities. So there are scenarios where it makes a lot of sense to have trust not in an entity, in an institution, and to have it instead in math, right? To be able to like mathematically prove that it's that you can trust the system, that nobody else has access to this data, that nobody else can steal your money. So and that that money exists, and all the ways that blockchain is used today, right? In case of cryptocurrencies, in case of I don't know, a lot of different instances where it is actually being used very successfully. But if you compare them to the places where it is being unsuccessfully, the thought is that people are trying to force fit that technology into scenarios where it doesn't really make sense. So that's I think the way about it. If you understand what a blockchain can do for you and what it is like useful for, I think there are many places where it can be used.
Yeah, I definitely. I also feel like they are force fitting it in this thing,
Mhm.
and also they are force fitting AI in a lot of places as well. Like it's they're putting it where it is not required, but still they are force fitting it. I don't know what. So
Mhm.
you talked about trust. Like these days, zero trust and security model is coming into picture a lot. What do you feel about that?
It's a very interesting concept. Zero trust is, as a concept, it's really great. The catch, right? What does a zero trust system imply? The zero trust system implies that you do not store your trust, that you do not trust, again, you do not store your trust in, you do not place your trust in a person, you do not place your trust in again in an entity or in a scenario or some logic. You make sure that every time something happens, be it authentication, be it authorization, be it anything, any kind of transaction, you establish trust and then you do that thing, right? First you establish trust and then you authenticate. First you establish trust and then you authorize that person, then you authorize a transaction. So that's what zero trust, like, my understanding of it is. The it, it's really good if it can be done with the amount of overhead that is acceptable. If you think about, like, okay, how would zero trust work in an email setting, right? I get an email from you, and I call you up, right? I call you up to verify that, okay, did you send this email? And you say yes. So I have verified that this email has indeed come from you, right? That's a zero trust way for email. Is it realistic to establish a zero trust model for emails? Probably not. But again, that's the trade-off. There is always an overhead to a zero trust system. So if that overhead can be managed, it's a really good system. And that's again a pro and con for how to understand if a zero trust system is really good for you.
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple of more points, more questions, and like just this question is there. What is the importance of capture the flag according to you?
Capture the flags actually get you in that mindset, right? In that mindset of finding the flaws. The capture the flags that I have always participated in, they were always about very very in-depth understanding of tech, right? testing your fundamentals to the deepest levels, right? Do you understand hex code? Do you understand assembly level language, right? Do you understand how, how a JPEG, is made? What is the compression algorithm used in a JPEG, right? Understanding how technologies work is the point of a CTF, because they expose you to a lot of different fundamental tests, right? And I'm talking about like this, in this scenario, which I'm talking about like very specific tech focused CTFs that I have always participated in the past, that they get you into that mindset of thinking deeply about things. It's a very compressed learning in a very small time, and I've always found it very helpful.
Definitely. I also feel that there's some controversy like that. People say like capture the flags are kind of uh, uh, like impractical things. Like they are not practical. There's this kind of controversy a lot there. But I feel like they do give some technical knowledge of things which aren't there, which cannot be from again from those learning books and all, studying all
I
those books.
I agree. I agree. So that's kind of the point. They are not about testing real world scenarios. Capture the flag is not about testing real world scenarios. The scenarios you will find in a capture the flag competition, most of the time you're probably right. You won't find them in the real world. That's kind of not the point of the CTF. The point of the CTF is to get you thinking and get you understanding and learning in a level of depth that will be useful later on. That will be useful when you are actually looking for something, when you're looking for a flaw.
Yeah, definitely. So just one more question at the last. How do people over here get started, get into, can work for Droice Labs?
Reach out. See, we are a very small company. We are a very young company. We don't really we don't really have 10,000 job posts live. We work with people who want to work with us, right? Who understand what the mission is, what we are trying to do. We are trying to improve healthcare for patients all across the world. So if that sounds interesting, reach out. We'll talk and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, nice. So just let me share my screen once again, and just a second. So at the last, if you want to talk about Droice Labs once more.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Droice Labs enough. You can find out more on our website. Again, if you are interested in finding out what we do, happy to talk more in detail.
I request the mods over here to put the Droice Labs link in the chat, please.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's all I think for this session. Let's conclude the, let's add a few words about this. Our sponsors who make this event happen, like the Folio Coding Ninjas are Platinum sponsors and really helped us. And these are our gold sponsors. We thank them a lot, and we thank you as well. Like it was a really nice session to have you here.
It was my
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And thanks to all the participants, also all the viewers of this session. Thank you very much.
Thanks.